Welcome back, guys. Another episode of the AltMed podcast. It's really starting to gather a bit of steam. I was told the other day that several of my family members have watched my videos now more than 5 times. So really getting the view count up, and know that we're going to get quite a few views on today's episode. We have Matt Shales in the house, and I don't actually know. There's so many different ways I could introduce Matt, but I'm going to let him do the talking. Before I do, it'd be remiss of me to skip over mentioning that I've got my tried and true co-host, Mitch Kurtz, also with me in the house, as always. And if you like what we're doing and you think it's good value, or you just like to sit around and listen to us chat informally like we do, please hit subscribe wherever you get your podcast feed. We really do appreciate all the views. Thank you, Mum and Dad. All right, over to Matt for a bit of an introduction. Matt, welcome. And do you want to tell us how you got into this space?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me, fellas. Great to be here. A long time listener, first time caller. How did I get involved? Well, I guess to put simply, I'm passionate about cannabis and what it can do for people and pets. So flick back a few years when it was all legalized. I guess I started as an investor in other companies. Got a little bit disappointed and upset with the progress there, the quality, the price of products that was coming out of there. So I thought I'll try do this myself. Whether that was insanity or not, we'll find out. But gave it a crack, skipped forward another few years. We actually got some product to market, which was great. Then I noticed the next hurdle was finding doctors to prescribe the products. I get a lot of patients talk to me and then I try and link them up with the doctor. And again, it was just a bit of a gap in the market there. So I thought, all right, let's make a clinic. So we started MediCann clinics. Again, is that insanity? We'll find out. And then, so we've got your MediCann Health, that's your importing your medicinal cannabis, the clinic to help supply. A big area I'm focused on is clinical trials. So the science side of it all, let's try and actually figure out what these medicines are doing and how they're doing it and fine tune it as best we can for specific conditions. So then started some clinical trials over here in WA through Curtin Uni over here. That's been exciting. And then we've got the pet side of things, so the animals can't be left out. So we've got Hemp Brothers, which takes care of all your hemp seed and hemp products for the four-legged friends.
Nice.
And then got a hemp farm as well, because why not?
and I think a patient advocacy group as well.
Yeah, so and so I didn't actually start that one myself. Sarah started that, and then I joined on, call it a year ago, about a year ago now. And the reason I actually joined that one, I wanted to really make sure it could be kept as a legal group. So there's a lot of cannabis groups out there where people can just share the website they bought their cannabis from. But I really wanted one to be just about the legal access, legal products, and get education about that going. So jumped on board there to help them out. And just thought I'd try and offer my assistance where I can, which has been good. Good. Everything's got its challenges, but we just keep on going.
That's really fantastic. And I think maybe starting with the medical cannabis support group, which I think, in the community, you're pretty well known for, especially on the East Coast, where people don't know all the amazing hats you wear on the West Coast all the time. I see a lot of questions, like you've really got your ear to the ground in that group. And I see you helping a lot of people understand the legal framework, the difference between products in terms of types of products, say broad and full spectrum, that kind of thing. And just really curious on the main kind of questions that people are coming to you with. Where are we at in the current climate with people's knowledge and understanding of the medicinal cannabis market?
Yeah, it's interesting because when we're in our cannabis bubble, we feel like, all right, everyone's onto it now. Everyone knows everything, all good. And then you step back for a moment and you realize, no, people still don't even realize it's legal to begin with. So a bit of a mixed bag there. But no, the main questions or queries, well, the first one, the most obvious, is just where can I access it? That's the question I see every day asked on there, what doctor is willing to prescribe? And then that's when the other questions, well, they're not necessarily questions, but I see people getting prescribed a certain product and feel that maybe it's not the right one for that ailment or something like that. And then so I try and give a bit of input about, the difference from isolates to a full spectrum to a broad spectrum. And then even what does a full spectrum mean? They're not all the same. So the different profiles, but some of the more popular questions: where to access it? Well, yeah, the different kinds of, I guess, delivery mechanisms. So should I be having flour or oil? And it's hard to, because this is for the doctor to really be telling them. So I really be careful about giving medical advice and really staying clear about, it's not about my brand. It's not a MediCann group. It's a group about what the patient needs. So yeah, I try and stay nice and impartial for it. But yeah, where to access seems to be the main one. And then really just actually accessibility. It's no longer available, or when's it going to be back in stock? Those kind of questions seem to come out a lot lately. But one thing we've got to try and make sure we keep control on there is a little bit of misinformation. So a patient gets told something by the pharmacist, and they'll maybe say it to the group as if it's a whole Australia-wide scenario when it was maybe just that pharmacy didn't have product at the time, or things like that. So it's really about, my role is more kind of just seeing where it's getting off track a bit and trying to help with the correct information. I'll try and let everyone else answer first. If I see something going a bit wrong, I just have an input. But because I don't want to be, it's not really about me, that group. It's not about what I think of everything. So I just try and let the group do itself. And if it needs a bit of steering, I'll jump in. But yeah, really about where can I access is the biggest question at the moment.
Well, yeah, amazing.
I was just going to say that just a thought that occurred to me is just how the product itself is so highly regulated, but it's also the information as well. So I just tending to find that, if you restrict access to information, it obviously forces people to exchange ideas in the the underground and Reddit threads and Facebook groups and that sort of thing. And just your thoughts on that, because I agree with you. There is a bit of misinformation out there, but I also think it makes it very difficult when there's all of these restrictions about, what you can say about cannabis, whether you can show a picture of the plant, and how do you find working within those parameters?
Yeah, it's difficult. That's actually probably the most stressful part of that group is, what can and can't I say? All I want to do, everything I do is to help people. It's the only reason I do any of these jobs, I guess, is to help the patient. And then so early on, I'd go and say things about, I'd just say, go to this place or come here or whatever. And then all of a sudden we find another company's dobbed on me to the TGA for marketing and things like that. So it got a bit scary then. And so I really just take a step back and go, okay, how do I do this properly? But it's hard, yeah. I'd love to be able to actually talk about specific product details and prices and things like that, but we can't. Well, I can't as someone in the industry. It is good that the patients themselves can discuss it, but it is hard. It's challenging.
Especially when the information itself is so neutral, in the sense that there's no, it's not advertising in the sense that you're not promoting the use of cannabis. You might just say to someone, did you know that medicinal cannabis comes in, you could get a flour product or you could get an oil product, and this would be the method of administration and blah, 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 or method of treatment. It does strike me as odd that everyone seems to be in this kind of environment in which there's tripwires everywhere, where you say one wrong thing and, you could be on the receiving end of a complaint to the TGA. I think it is getting better, but I certainly would like to see those barriers around information start to come down, because I think that there's a genuine appetite amongst people in the marketplace of ideas in this space, that they just want access to information. And as long as it's not being pushed by someone who has their own sort of financial incentive to give a recommendation of a certain product or clinic, I think we should be allowed to dabble in that space. But anyway, I'm just ranting a bit here, but it's a passion of mine to see that come to fruition.
Or to rant.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's going to get a bit easier over time. And if I ever get a legal team behind me that can advise me on what we can and can't do a bit better. But at the moment, I just play it very safe. And
where do I sign up? Anyway, no.
I think it's, that dialogue, opening it up is really important. It allows us to lead to to get away from just, dilly-dallying around the basics and get into the more interesting questions. And one that I'd love to explore with you, Matt, because I don't hear many people talking about it to the extent that you do, which is the difference between, we hear full spectrum, broad spectrum all the time, but the difference between full and broad spectrum. Now, talking about terpenes, talking about minor cannabinoids, and we're not even at this point yet, but flavonoids, that type of thing. I'd love to hear your perspective on that before I get off onto a rant on that, because I could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, no, this is an area that I'm really interested in, is the minor cannabinoids and the terpenes, all the other great ingredients that are actually doing something, but we're all focused on THC and CBD, it seems. But well, I think I get onto a bit of a pattern, and I'm starting to figure out something, and then another case comes up and it flips it on its head. But no, yeah, so with that, yeah, definitely it's and again, you see it through the group where someone just says, you want a full spectrum, and that's the end of it. It's like, well, yes, that's a good starting point, but what full spectrum? You could have, I could get a full spectrum hemp variety that's just got a bit of CBD and nothing else in it really, or another hemp variety that's got an amazing terpene profile, so they're completely different. But yeah, a big area of interest in mine. So the clinical trial we're just doing now is actually hopefully exploring this, where we've got a CBD isolate, then we've got a CBD broad spectrum product with no terpenes. Then we've got that broad spectrum, so a broad spectrum is a full spectrum product with just the THC component removed. So you still got all your minor cannabinoids and terpenes. A full spectrum product is when you've literally obviously got your hemp or cannabis plant material, you've put it in the solvent, whether it's ethanol, CO2, hydrocarbon, and you're extracting the oil from the plant, and then we're using that full extract to make the medicine. So you just dilute that down and you carry oil such as coconut or whatever it is. So you're keeping that full plant extract, or you've got an isolate, which is just one ingredient on its own, more commonly obviously CBD isolate. Now, obviously everything I say here is all very anecdotal. We don't know for a fact yet what's going on, but we're seeing patterns where the introduction of these other ingredients really do help when it comes to the efficacy of the product. So not needing such a high dose to get that same medical benefit, or even mitigating a side effect. So let's say you don't want that short-term memory loss with THC. So we get a bit of a terpene profile, high pinene, things like that can try and mitigate that memory loss. Or enhance medical benefit. So make it more sedating by having a more sedating terpene profile in there. It's a bit of a challenge because a few years ago, no one believed, they all just thought I was dreaming and talking rubbish, because they say, how could it matter if it's only at 0.2%? When you've got THC and CBD that are at 30%, 20%, they must be the real magic. But yeah, obviously it doesn't have to be such high amounts to be as potent. So we are learning, no, they do matter. So we've actually got an Israeli partner for our terpenes. They purely do the terpenes, and they're pretty elite, I'd like to think, at it. But the studies that they're finding is everything I thought, such as myrcene being the couch lock terpene, well, they've flipped it on its head, and they think that actually might be a bit more uplifting. So I'm like, oh, bloody hell. Just when you think you're figuring it out. But yeah, no, we've got a long way to go. But that's my interest is there about, okay, this one THC product, let's say it's 20% THC, another product's 20% THC, one can put you to sleep, one can give you energy. Why is that? What's going on there? So it's about breaking it up and figuring out what's happening. But the hard bit is we can only test for your 12-ish cannabinoids at the moment out of potentially 130. So we're still only getting a snapshot of what's really going on. So it's hard at the moment to really know what's happening. But the best bit is most of these products are helping in one way or another anyway, so we can only get better from here. But yeah, it's about trying to find that. So if someone's trying to treat sleep, well, the last thing we're going to give them is something that's an uplifting terpene profile. Or if they've got Parkinson's, we don't want to excite that tremor, we want to try and slow that down. So that's my area of knowledge or interest, I guess, is trying to really look further into the plant. And as you said, flavonoids, everything else come into it too. So a long way to go.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it's a really interesting point you raised, because you're now sort of dealing with the different therapeutic scope of other compounds within the plant, right? And I think we're by now, after all of the clinical research that has been done into CBD and THC that's ongoing, we've got a pretty good idea of those major cannabinoids. But yeah, certainly, the conversation about terpenoids and minors and how they interplay, and the separate therapeutic effects that you get from them collectively in the entourage effect. If anyone's interested in looking that up, Ethan Rosso is one of the world's most respected cannabis researchers. He's I think a neuroscientist, but yeah, very much encourage anyone who's interested in that research to have a look at it. But I can see Mitch champing at the bit, as he often does.
Yeah, I loved everything.
We've got a lot to get through. I know we've got heaps.
Let me champ. I love it, especially when he was talking about when Matt, you were saying about the 12 testing for 12 kind of terpenes at the moment. That's true, especially in a lot of the GMP testing facilities, especially overseas. But you do find that if you go to some of the bigger, more experimental machines that you can find in some of the universities, you'll find machines that can, or chromatography machines that can actually get up to 40 and maybe some flavonoids in there. And it's starting to get, a bit more of a spectrum of those terpenes and what's actually contained in there. So it's getting very exciting. The other thing, I've been using this analogy, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. When we, to kind of put it in terms of what people might understand a bit better, to me, it feels like alcohol, in that if you're drinking Bundaberg rum or you're drinking, Grange, it's still the ethanol that's really getting you drunk in those things. But you're going to have a very different time on red wine versus tequila, and I think it comes down to the other compounds that are in those drinks, that it's not, you're getting drunk either way, but you're getting a very different effect. And I think that might have a therapeutic, and I'm going to stress the might, because we've got to make as many disclaimers as we can here, have other implications for in the case of cannabis. So I think as we move forward and we start to understand what these terpenes do and start testing more, we might find that contributes, as Andrew said, to the entourage effect, which is not an unfamiliar concept to the healthcare world. Like, there is clinical research that supports synergistic interaction of compounds way before cannabis. So,
it's just lagging a bit.
This is the new tier.
Sorry, just got a little bit of a lag on that.
Did I lag?
Did lag, but I was going to say, are you making the case that tequila is an unapproved therapeutic good? I just need to be clear about this.
I think it's actually it should be approved.
Well, I don't know. I think the advertising rules would then apply. But anyway, sorry, just a side tangent there. But I think over to you, Matt, while Mitch fixes up his lag, just to, what are your thoughts on that?
And on that point also, I actually like to, definitely, and it's also what makes it a little hard with some of the doctors, because they are used to just one ingredient or one API. And this, the way we consider an API at the moment, an active pharmaceutical ingredient with cannabis in Australia is THC over 1%, other cannabinoids over 2%, and they don't even consider terpenes API at all. But I consider them all APIs. But normally, obviously, a doctor just has to deal with one, and they're not looking at potentially hundreds and how they're working together. So it is a little tricky. But saying with that alcohol comparison, I always say that as well to some people where they go, no, cannabis isn't for me. And I said, when did you try it? And I said, it was 18 after a big night. I say, okay. It's kind of like me saying, I sculled a bottle of Bacardi 151. Alcohol is not for me. So no, I could actually get a light beer, a wine. Bundy is actually my favorite. And it's not necessarily just cannabis is the broad, just a blanket statement, and THC is a blanket statement. So hopefully, it's definitely going to happen as education improves, and we can actually start to break it down into not just cannabis. It's this kind of a formula, this one. And for example, people say, no, it makes me a bit paranoid. Well, we're thinking it could be, the last I heard was it may be THCV causing this. So it could be as simple as, okay, let's find a variety that doesn't have THCV. Things like that. So it'll be good to be able to really break it down when we learn more. But again, in saying that, everyone's different. And where I think I'm finding a pattern, let's say a Parkinson's formula, and then I've got another Parkinson's patient that doesn't do anything for them, and it's like, bugger, I thought I was onto it. But it's also how it interacts with each person, the individual system, I guess. But like with most medicines, I think you have a 30% success rate, and it's pretty good. So it's we might just have a version 1, 2, 3 of each formula for different body or for different people. But there was actually a company we almost worked with that do DNA matching. So they'll test your DNA and try and match a formula to that. It may have legs. It was depending what markers they're testing against. But it may kind of come down that way. Who knows? But I love it. I love that there's so many moving parts, but then also when I try and really control it, and standardization is hard. We can't standardize it when there's hundreds of moving bits. And yes, a full spectrum would be great. I'm all for it, but we might find we have to do a bit of a man-made full spec. So it might just be 20 minor or 20 cannabinoids and 20 terpenes that we've just put together as a specific amount, not just 2 isolates together, but a mid-spectrum, who knows. But I think it is hard if we're doing a pure full spectrum that we just grow outside and expecting every single ingredient to be exactly the same, it can be a bit tricky. But I'm not in favor of just a CBD isolate. It costs more to make, and you need a lot more of it. Yeah, it's kind of
you can see the appeal from the medical community because it's just a single compound that they dose. But I agree with you. I think unlocking the full potential of the plant is where we should be investing our research. But just on the full spectrum discussion, it's kind of like to your point. Yeah, whenever someone says, "Oh, can I?" I'm interested in a full spectrum or a broad spectrum. It really is kind of like somebody saying, I'd like a red wine or I'd like a beer.
Yeah.
So the nuance will come.
Did I get cut off before? Did my analogy come through? I don't know where I got cut off with my lag. Sorry about that, everybody. Right. But
I think
did I get through my little alcohol bit?
We got it.
Okay. All right. I'm just an alcoholic, so that's all right.
I think actually
I guess
coincided you were having a few drinks and your whole connection just sort of started to fade a little bit. But anyway.
My Zoom's drunk. So speaking of, well, I'm not speaking of drunk, but maybe full spectrum, I've been seeing a lot of people, I know it's huge overseas, the pet space. Now that's a tricky one in Australia. It's not really somewhere I think that finished goods are allowed to play in, but there are other avenues. Can you tell us a little bit more about the pet space? Or the pet space you're in is in hemp seed, correct?
Yeah, majority, yeah. So Hemp Brothers have got the hemp pet range, and so the main product line is your hemp seed based products, so hemp seed nectar for arthritis, things like that. A little blend for allergies, but then we are involved in the full spectrum supply as well through vets only, though, not an over the counter product, but through prescription. It's an interesting area. This one, it's depending who you ask. Is depending if they think it's what kind of if it's grey or if it's what area it's in. But I've had the state health knock on my door. I didn't actually have a shirt on at the time. I was like, God damn it, hang on a minute, let me give a shirt. But so that was, we talked through it with them. That was fine. But there was a few different bodies involved. So whether it was state health or then the veterinary side of things, some didn't. Well, they actually said that hemp seed was illegal as well. And then another person said CBD doesn't come from hemp. And so it was a little bit of confusion around it all. That's why we just said, look, we'll do it through vets for now, then, just to keep it all nice and controlled. But I'm amazed at how well, even the hemp seed range, I'm amazed how well that works. I actually tested it for CBD because I had to have some in there. It's working too well. But yeah, nutrition, hey, it's omega-3, 6, 9. It actually does... it does help, but I think there's something else going on in this plant we haven't found yet. Even when you talk about juicing the hemp leaf for Crohn's, things like that, and that's from a plant that's not even flowering yet, so no cannabinoids involved yet. So is that chlorophyll? What's actually going on? I think there's something else in this plant that's really doing something. Because omega-3, 6, 9 is not new. Vitamins, minerals, it's in everything. So how can this magic plant be working so well? But yeah, so got the pet side there covered. It's great. I love that side because we can actually market it. I can actually hold the bottle, and
it's an interesting.
Because different to my dog, which just loves White Widow. Just kidding. Sorry, Andrew.
I was just going to say. I mean I suppose there are a few, shall I say, integrative health or holistic vets that I think are starting to get on board. But my understanding is that at least where we're up to at the moment is that the relevant regulatory authority that does veterinary medicines hasn't really got an interest in sort of finished goods. So it sort of have to come through the compounding route. But I have heard some reports in the field that there are some very happy dogs out there. That there are some dogs that are receiving CBD treatments. But it's the same thing though with with your SAS approvals for human therapeutic use, where if the vet deems there to be a clinical justification to trial a CBD oil or something, then that's really it's a decision for them to do that. But I think we will, with more people getting their pets prescribed these products, even as a compound, we'll start to see it becoming a little bit more, or a bit less taboo, I think I mean to say.
Yeah. And I've seen that a lot more as well, where it's the compounding side seems to be the way a lot more of the vets are getting involved with it, which is good. And then it is funny, some people will treat their pet first with it, and then they think, oh, wow, it really worked for my dog's arthritis. Will it help mine? And we're like, well, yes, of course it will. And it actually almost gets them into it all. And the other bit is a lot of people, they think, oh, no, cannabis is horrible for dogs. They had a batch of brownies and then were pretty crook. We're finding it was the chocolate cake that made them crook a lot of the time, and or they had the whole batch, which is going to make anyone sick. But there's actually some trial results come out recently where we actually found that, I might have this a little wrong, but it was that, dogs could actually have more THC in their system, or they could have more THC before becoming to an intoxicating level in their blood compared to humans. So that was quite interesting learning that, and that's what started me realizing it might be what they were eating the cannabis in, the cake, the chocolate cake, that's not actually good for them and all that. But the good bit with all this is we can't die from it because there's no cannabinoid receptors in the part of the brain that control breathing. So yeah, I've seen videos of a dog wobbling a little bit from too much THC. It's not great to watch, but they're not going to die. You can give them to the other if you give them a pack of Panadol, a human has a pack of Panadol, they're not going to be feeling well. So
your dog's just going to walk off and start listening to Pink Floyd or something like that.
Still CDs.
It's a 5-star review for a vet compound that he got it from.
Yeah,
he goes off and has 17 pig's ears.
Exactly, yeah. But no, it's good. It's it's good to be able to help them. And as I said, even just the hemp seed side of products is working amazing. Like even dogs that are thousands of dollars on the allergy side of things, the Cytopoint injections, all that kind of stuff. A little $20 bottle of hemp seed oil and coconut oil mix is doing the trick. So it's a feel good industry. Whether it's the human side, the animal side, everyone's always happy. If it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. We're not harming anyone. That's the best thing about this. I don't think I could ever be involved in a company that's supplying benzos or opiates. And I mean, I think a lot and I care a lot, and I would be having sleepless nights if I knew that anyone was being harmed by something I was selling them, and we were putting people out, I just couldn't do it. So it's the perfect industry for me. It's a feel good industry, I think.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think, whilst of course, the first ARTG listing of an approved registered medical cannabis product is in the pipeline for quite a few companies in the sector. I think ultimately that's one part of their equation. Proving safety is not really going to be too difficult with something innocuous like a CBD isolate, but of course efficacy is where the debate appears to be had, and lots of different medical views on dosage and that sort of thing. But I agree with you. I think just harm profile is so low that it is a feel-good industry. Mitch, I saw you taking notes at the start of this call when Matt took us through the long list of things he's involved with. Where are we up to? Where's next?
Well, we've still got, if I'm looking correctly. So, I mean, the medical cannabis support group, got 5,000 users on there. There's quite a bit of traction going through there. So there's might be a bit more to talk on there, but I also want to hear a little bit more about the MediCann Health and the Hemp Farm, actually, the day-to-day, the agricultural side, because most of the guests we've had thus far, we've had Tommy from Canatrek talking a little bit about it, but I feel like you'll have a good West Coast kind of view on things, which I'd love to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the Hemp Farm, I get really lucky with everything, to be honest. So because everything I've done is on no budget. I don't have a lot of financial support or anything. I literally just work at the kitchen bench. I don't get paid. The doctor at our clinic doesn't get paid. So we're pretty much a charity. So that farm could only be made because it's lucky my uncle's got a chicken farm. And they had room. And I said, oh, can we license that? And he said, yeah. And so we had the fertilizer was free from the chickens. It was already fenced off, so it was great. Didn't have to worry about security. So I thought, let's do it. Got the hemp license, and my real focus there is one, just to get hands on the plants again. Almost forgot what they look like after years of paperwork, but really about a bit of strain development. So obviously, with the hemp side of things, we can only work with obviously hemp for non-medical reasons. I'll explain it. So hemp is, in Australia, it's cannabis with less than 1% THC. So we can still play with all those other, now when I say play with, I mean breed with, etc. We can't use them, but we can still be playing with all those other cannabinoids and terpenes that I mentioned before. So my theory there is to do a bit of strain development and get these interesting cultivars bred up, and whether it's high CBC, CBG, or a specific terpene profile. But yeah, that was really just, it's a hobby. So at the start of it, I just go down there with a shovel and plumb in all the retic and then throw the seeds out. I think last year we grew about 50,000 plants, and it cost me $1,500, including license and everything. The rest of the money was just for the PVC pipe. So it's, but it was a dream come true, literally walking through a field of dreams, and just you'd be able to hear me laughing through the paddock walking through each week. But yeah, that was.
I think I heard you.
yeah. Anyone within 100k radius, but no, that was good. It was really again, it was just to show the farmer. I'm trying to say, get rid of the chickens. That's not sustainable. Let's turn it into hemp, and even because he's got the big 1,800 square meter chicken sheds as well, and chicken pretty much is a cannabis plant. They need the exact same thing. So I said, can we convert this into a grow? But that's down the track. If they change some rules, I do believe they're going to change the rules so we don't have to throw the flower in the bin. I literally 2 months ago had to bury about 400 kilo of CBD flower, and it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It just felt so wrong. But it's the rules are rules. But surely the government will change this, whether it becomes like in the US, where it's an over-the-counter nutraceutical different category, so no medical claims, things like that, or whether we actually supply that biomass to a medicinal cannabis manufacturer. One way or another, we've got to be able to utilize that bit of the plant. We can't just throw it in the bin, surely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and burying it is very strange. I would have thought that you could at least burn it and have a few people around.
Well, there was a fire ban. I didn't plan on that, but it was a fire ban, so we couldn't do it. But the another friend of mine at a farm did do that, and he accidentally stood downwind, and even though it was hemp, he said it was definitely something. But no, it's we had to bury it, unfortunately. I'll grow some plants on it next year and see actually how that helped the substrate underneath. But no, it's but that was just a bit of fun, really. So, and again, so I've actually got a partner of mine. He's just finished his PhD on hemp agronomy. So, which is cool. So Dr. Hemp, I guess, technically. And yeah, doing different cultivars and in different regions, so subtropics, things like that, and seeing how it affects the cannabinoid profile and all that. But so yeah, he's there if we ever need to do a bit of breeding and stabilizing genetics. It's a big thing as well. You know, you've got all this, people go buy seed online or where, even if it's a legal source as well, but they're not stable varieties. So
right.
Those 50,000 seeds I grew last year, there was probably 49,000 different looking ones. It's meant to be one variety, but their appearance, phenotype, all different. And I dare say the chemotype would have been even more different, the chemical makeup. So even that alone could be another project, and it's only just stabilizing genetics. And so it's like a Granny Smith apple, things like that. Every time you grow it, it's the exact same thing. But yeah, the hemp farm for now, a bit of fun, just minimal time, minimal output, and effort in there. But got the photos from last year's crops. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's the money shot. You need that.
Spelled Hemp Brothers in hemp, so you have to get the drone up and then the photo of that. It was all worth it.
That's awesome. Yeah, the breeding genetics, stabilized genetics, is a very interesting one, because it takes 3 to 5 years to really start getting that kind of consistent year after year. Coming from a bit of a genetics background myself, it's very interesting play. I commend you. Like, I love hearing people talk about that in Australia, because you don't hear it too often. You just hear people thinking, we're in the green rush, we need to do cannabis yesterday, and how you want to do it, or the strategy or behind that, and thinking about terpenes, minor cannabinoids. But basically, that's the next generation that we just haven't got to yet in this country. And I think we'll get there eventually, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, and that's where I'm not in here. I'm not a businessman. Before this, I was a commercial diver, just an underwater laborer, so it's, there's no strategy involved for me. So I'm here to make a proper cannabis product for patients. So it's a long plan. clinical trials might take 10 years, product registration, that whole side of it. I'm not really here to buy a product, sell a product, make some money, on to the next thing. I'm here to actually stay, and it's there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this industry, way back in the agricultural side of it, with the genetics, or even the end use with specific products for specific uses, and everywhere in between. So it's no, it's good. I'm loving it. And the good bit is because it's such a new-ish industry, most people are willing to work together. You know, if I was coming into, I don't know, wanting to make a soft drink and I rang Coca-Cola, so let's collaborate. Well, I wouldn't even be able to call them, I assume. They just wouldn't even answer. But here, you know, we can actually, well, we've got, as I said, a partner in Israel that I believe are, you know, world leading in terpenes. We've got partners all around the world that are, everyone's needing to work together. So it's, I used to be scared to call, you know, a CEO of a company like, ooh, or someone from government. It used to make me a bit nervous, but now I realize, oh, we're all just people. And so we're all here to, majority of us are here to help. So it's, no, it's good, but there's a lot of areas to work on, which does make it, I can get a bit too excited and look everywhere, but we've got to really focus and narrow in. But so far, so good.
Oh, it sounds like you've got some great projects on the go. I couldn't agree more with you about that. Yeah, it's collaboration piece. Everyone, because it's weird. I sort of, some days I feel like it's a really small community, and then other days I'm like, well, actually it's massive. There's lots of people on forums and everything out there. So I think everyone is generally you know, going in the right direction. And like even, you know, conversations that you'd have with, you know, different regulatory bodies at state and federal level, everyone's just working within the rules, but the rules are being updated as we go along. So it's all going in the right direction, I think. But yeah, I just love the sound of all these little projects that you're in.
Yeah, cheers. And that was a good bit too as well, being, well, it's good and bad, but being in a new industry where the framework might not be perfect, but it's good because we can change it. You know, it's not set in its way for the last 50 years. So we can have a little bit of input about how it all actually looks going forward. And the thing as well, definitely through that group, I see a lot of people they just get very angry at the government and government this, government that. The government there's no GST on medicine. So I mean, in my process, the government aren't taking any money along the way. And the fact, I actually see it it's quite unique and lucky that the government have even allowed us to prescribe these products in the first place. They haven't gone through clinical trials. So I don't think there's many other medicines that we can prescribe that aren't registered. So they could have just said, yeah, legalize, no worries, see you in 10 years with the trials, come back then. But at least I've said, you know what, we do understand it's safe, you can do it. Yes, it's a little bit harder to get, a few extra hurdles to go over, but at least we can get it for now. And it's, again, maybe people don't understand that this isn't the way it's going to be forever. This is just an interim fix whilst the trials are being done, etc. So, and things like that, Schedule 3 over-the-counter scenario at first, it doesn't look that great with the limitations, but surely they can hopefully amend those. But at least it's heading in the right direction. It's not a Schedule 9, you know, they've made it 3. It's not perfect, but I've got to step back as well. And even with the doctor side, I used to get a bit grumpy with some doctors thinking, you know, or getting annoyed that why aren't you prescribing it, or you're prescribing the wrong stuff. But again, if I step back a bit and realize, hang on, I might have been passionate about this for the last 10, 15 years and been researching forever, but some of these doctors are just, to try and help people, just gotten involved in the last 6 months and they've been thrown in the deep end, you know. You're meant to know everything, but the product names are literally just, some of them are just called 20 to 1. I mean, how do they know what the hell that's for? It's, you know, so it's, sometimes I've got to step back and realize, no, hang on a minute. It's, we're all doing what we can. It's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than what it could be. Some of these other countries that people say we're so far behind, you know, like this country here, but when you really go there, you realize, no, there's no system there. People aren't accessing it. Like the UK, I think it's not many patients there yet either, things like that. Or like the US is an interesting one. It's a different system altogether. It's, you get your card and you just go and buy some cannabis, but in a medicinal setting, in terms of specific uses for products, I feel that we're not too far behind, you know, where with Israel, I feel in the next few years, we're going to be actually really getting up that ladder of turning it just from the standard product to a bit more science involved. But everyone just bags on Australia or the government or big pharma. And I hope some people listened before when I said I don't get paid, because a lot of people say I'm only in this for the money. I haven't been paid for 3 years. So it's, yeah, it's not about the money. But yeah.
I would like to think though, is there a little bit of, you know, a bit of money to be made in the pet space, or a little so-so?
Well, there was, but that's, then MediCann just took over Hemp Brothers. So now I can't pocket any of those little sales anymore. So, because I'm not on a wage. So yeah, no. I'm just lucky my partner has been paying for rent and food, so I owe her a lot. but I think if you allow in terms, like, I mean, the companies are making money, but I just, as I said, I was a diver before. I feel weird paying myself and asking myself how much I want to be. It's new to me, but yeah,
we'll doing the hard yards.
Yeah. Hard yards, doing a passion project, having a deep dive into the industry, really. So I was trying to figure out a way to work that pun before, but anyway. No, well, I've got no further questions now, but I know as soon as we wrap this episode up, I'm going to have like another 20. So we'll have to get Matt on for another episode. But Mitch, did you have any more? Or are we wrapping up?
I'm really happy with this episode. I think it's really some great topics that you're a little bit different. You know, we've done a lot of more introductory kind of topics. We've done a lot more kind of your basics 101 of cannabis and seeing a doctor and a pharmacist and stuff. But this one dives into a few more of the more complex parts of cannabis and stuff that maybe is harder to find information on. So I'm really pleased with that. Thanks so much for helping us explore that today, Matt.
Yeah, no worries at all. I feel like we only touched the surface as well. I definitely have to have round two, because I know as well I just ramble nonsense and jump around every topic, but no, yeah, definitely got a lot more to discuss.
No, the fact that this conversation produced phrases like stabilized genetics, pinene. There's just a lot of. I feel like we could go a lot further, so and we will. So another episode with Matt will be coming up for everyone listening. Matt, it's been a pleasure, and until next time, take care.
Cheers, fellas. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.